And also let me share my screen. I can share the entire screen in case we want to present multiple windows. Okay, cool. So good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for attending this demo. So I think in this session we are going to briefly discuss like what kind of problem we are going to solve, and then we will review the technology which can help us to get this work done, and then at last we are going to discuss do we go with this, or we have a better approach. So going to the context, so with the HCO 1204, so there is a request that we will need to query some data against some CSV files. So I think that is the problem, or the requirement that we need to fulfill. And I think Pratham and Matt are working on a great process which will be used to extract some content from the PDF files and put them into the CSV and files. So each row will represent the information we collected from the PDF file. And then I think based on some segments, we will divide the CSV's files into multiple. So I'm not fully understand that those code, what those code mean, but I think based on some fields, then we are going to group those records, put them into different CSV files, and then later on we need to run a query to search some information from those CSV files. Am I correct? Did I understand this process correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. The CSV file will contain, any record has validation failures or the count and stuff like that, and each record or each CSV file with individual record information, and then these all these files will have to be combined, and a consolidated report, a summary report has to be generated.
Wonderful. Cool. Thanks, Bertam. And then I think we basically have a few options to group or aggregate those data. So the first option come to our mind is the database. So we think that once we have a database to contain all those information from the CSV, we can simply run some SQL statement against those database. But I think our customer dislike that idea, so requesting a database may take a while, and we don't want to go with that approach. And then
Hey, Mo.
Yeah.
Hey, I think he just mentioned that a database would take a while to create. Are you guessing? If I had to guess, I would say yes, it would take a while to create, but has anybody tried?
Yes, yes. So we met with the infrastructure team, the kernel and the Somu and team. So it looks like that the first thing is the big contract change, because it is not part of a contract. So they have to append a contract, number one, and number two, any request will take minimum 3 to 6 months for
Okay,
provisioning. Yeah.
okay.
So more, I don't want to, there was third option presented. If you recall yesterday's meeting, um, one was the CSV, definitely that's initially, and then the other alternative was putting these extracted in a queue transaction data.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was also kind of SOMU, what do you call, accepted in this, if we can have that data stored in a queue in encrypted form. So that is another backup. So this CSV is one option, and the other backup is, or rather, I would say that's primary, using the queue, and then this could be a secondary option.
I definitely agree with you, Pat. Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining. So I definitely agree with you, Pratham. So I will call that a queue method as a primary. So I heard that we will extract those content, put into CSV, and upload to S3. And later on, we need to pull those data back to our UI path, run some queries, and send those files to SharePoint. So I don't see a point that we have to make those CSV has a round trip, go to S3 bucket and download back. I don't see the reason of that, but we can have some other discussion. But I agree with you, Pratham. So having this information extracted from CSV file, let's say CSV files as a raw data, but then those raw data are not friendly for query. So I agree that if we can extract those content and put them into some data table within the UI path technology, then we can easily query those information. So without worrying about those files. I definitely agree. So that should be our primary solution. And I would say those querying against those CSV files, that's an alternative. So just in case customer have to request those data, don't go to anywhere, just sitting in the CSV, then the process that we are going to discuss in this meeting may help us to solve the problem.
Hey, before you start, Mo, I need to also, if you remember yesterday, I was supposed to ask Cornell about the connection between S3 and SharePoint. His response is, and I am going to quote him, from IEP servers, we can reach S3 bucket. Important caveat from ds.irs.net.gov. Domain VMs need connections to S3. More work is needed. So that puts an impediment, Matthew, if you remember correctly, on
Yep.
connecting from S3 to SharePoint.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
So one of the things that they had set up for us, or at least gave us access to, was instead of using the IEP VMs, to utilize the IRS VMs, where they mentioned that it should let us have access to the 365 activities
Okay.
as well as S3.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
So Chris, while we are on, sorry, Mo, I don't want to take your meeting over, but quickly, while we are on this topic, I think after you left, because we presented the timeline, so we said we need that development time all the way up to 28th of February.
Yeah, you and I
So-
talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then they said, okay, after Chris speaks with and what the outcome is from your discussion with Colonel, we'll make that decision before the meeting at 1:30. So can you put this in the chat, like we tested his meeting chat? And
Yeah,
then
I'll
we'll
just copy it. I'll just copy it verbatim and put it in the meeting chat.
correct. And then we can stick to 28th as a, to complete. And he was saying like, can you be sure? And if you want to extend some time, we don't want to move the dates again and again.
Yeah,
I
we
said
don't
that-
want to move the dates. This is going to have to be, Freedom, we've already had this on our plate for so long. This is going to have, and no one's fault. I mean, we've run into a lot of roadblocks on this that we've
Correct.
overcome.
Correct.
But the 28th, like you and I discussed when we proposed that date, is going to have
Correct.
to be our drop dead.
Correct. No, Somu was saying that we don't want to move again and again. So if you think it can, one time, if you need more time or whatever, I said 28 looks, and then we will have to resolve the issues as we come across. There are still, we have theories, we have, moving parts here, but this is the best looks like as of today. What we
And
know.
it may be like Matt suggested before, we do another MVP 2.0 and deal with the technical debt after that. But at least we're iterating out a much larger solution, right?
Correct. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Sorry, Mo.
So I think so 1:30 meeting we'll go with 28. So in the chat if you can put it, so
Yep,
and then we
sure
say
will.
28 looks like, Sorry, Mo, go ahead, please.
No problem, no problem. Yes, I think that's a great conversation. Okay, so going back to our topics, just in case that we cannot move forward with extracting the data into the queue. So what other options do we have? So then I have some sample data prepared here. So here, so this is one of the CSV files. So it just a proof of concept. So like we have the ID, name, age here, and I have this is student1.csv. So I have multiple files contain different students' name and their age, and then we are going to upload this file to the S3 bucket just to simulate what our UiPath process done with the content extracting, assuming that those information come from individual PDF files. So I have like two folders. They're all empty, and I'm going to upload my files to the bucket. So let me just choose a single file here. Upload. Okay, now pop up in the bucket. Wonderful. And then I'll probably leave this window open, and then we can switch to the query tool, which is this Athena query tool. So what it does is it create abstraction layer which map the schema in the CSV file. So as you can see, I have two tables created, and they have the column name match the CSV column name, and then here I can define the type, which does not belong to the a plain CSV format, but since we are doing some structured SQL, so a type is required. But don't think that I import those CSV to some database, to contain those data. So this is just an abstraction layer to make those query statement happen. But no data are going to be, extracted out of the bucket. So data is still sitting in S3 bucket, but we just build some, a query layer to make our, data accessing easier. So that's it. And I have, the two table, match individual folder name. And then I also set up something here to define like where those query results will go to. So it's going to be sit in the same bucket as my row data. So switch back to this bucket. Okay, so now I have class 1, class 2. I don't have the query result yet. Then let me come back to the query. So I can do this SQL statement as we do from database, right? So I say, tell me like the ID, name, and age from this class name. And I'm only interested in the name starting with T. So if I run this query, and I can get Tom returned. And if you recall what contained in this file, actually, I have 3 students, but only Tom start with T, so that's why Tom come, as a result. And after this query, there is going to be a query result folder generated, and it has some date as the subfolder path. And then this CSV file, if I download to my local, and I will show you how it look like. So here is the Tom only in the another CSV file as a result. So basically, both the raw data, the query result are all sitting in the bucket. We don't need to open any connections with other services or on-prem or on a virtual machine. So the only things we need to do is send a command through this Athena and then get those CSV result populated in the same bucket. So same thing I can do through this AWS UI console, or alternatively, since we are talking about automation, I can have a command line to, I'm in my Mac, so I use this console, but we can do a PowerShell or any other command line interface. So I can just call this AWS Athena CLI, telling, hey, going to run a query. So this is a SQL statement I'm going to run. So get everyone from the class 1. I only want to see the top 10. And then this is my database, which is the container of this table. And then this is the result that's going to be populated. So if I run this guy, you see that I don't have this result returned to my console, meaning that as an operator, I can only send a command, but I don't get the result. So the data doesn't come to the client side. It's only sitting in a bucket. And if I switch back to this view, originally I only have this 01 folder, okay, so I think it's a date. But I think I should have additional result generated. I can remove this result folder just in case something cannot be overwritten. So remove this guy. Okay, make sure it's happened. Okay, then I'm going to run this again. I should expect the result populated here. No, really? I'll take a look, but the idea is that it should generated the results in the bucket as expected. And going back to the query itself, so the power of the SQL statement that we can do a lot of joining, have some aggregation method. So I have saved some method here. For example, this union guy. So like I have the students that's sitting in class A, class 1 and class 2, and I want to see a full list across those CSV files. And that is, I think, the problem we're trying to solve with the query. So now I'm ready to upload additional files to the bucket. Let's upload 3 and 4 students to this class. Okay. And now, since class 2 bucket folder is filled in, if I run this query again, um, I should see more students return, represent, the result from, different files in the structure. So my point is, first, those CSV file doesn't have to be joined, to get to be presented together. Like they can be split in multiple files across different folders. As long as we set up some mapping here, then we can, having those records joined and showed in our query. And second thing is, sometimes the query can be complex. So I have another query saved here, which is this count guy. So what it does is it joins those class A and class B, and it will group the age, and you'll see, like, for each age, how many students do we have. So if I run this query, so you can see that, for age 13, I have 1 student, but for 27, I have 2. So, if we do this, line by line, we have to like cache the, basically have some multiple variables and count, like, how many students we have for each age group. But, if we do a single statement, SQL statement, then it's just as simple as a single, command. So, whatever we can do in SQL Server database are expected to happen here as well. Like, from the running reports perspective, it has a very similar user experience from my point of view, and the performance is pretty good. But, well, depends on how many files we have. So considering that we have thousands of CSV files, scanning those files take time, and that's my point, that we should avoid combining those record into a big CSV. So I heard the gentleman, I'm not sure if I pronounced his name correctly, Shomo. Did I call his name correctly?
That's right.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I think he mentioned, combining those individual CFCs into a big one, multiple times, and I don't get the reason of doing so. So Pratam mentioned that we may use the UiPath queue to cache the data. So if that is the approach we are going to take, then no matter we combine or not, it doesn't matter, right? So those CSV files, we will leave them in the storage. We only care the data in the queue. So whether those file merge or not, it should not impact the query at all. And if we go with this S3 and Athena approach, then as you can see, these files can be sitting in any folder structure, and you can query it all the time. And one of the advantages that we keep them separate is because they are divided as through segment, right? So there's some possibilities that we can predict where those data may come from, and we can exclude some table. For example, here, I want to look at the students from 2 classes. Maybe there's another class called class 3, but if the result I care only come from class A and class 1, class 2, then I can exclude the class 3 folder to save some time on scanning. But if everything joined as a single file until reaching to the end of the big CSV file, I cannot determine which row it belongs to. So having a full scan of the data is always costly. So that's my understanding on the approach of merging file. So I agree with Madam. So if let's say the data UiPath queue can fulfill this need, this should be our primary approach. So we don't introduce any new services, and those files are sitting locally. I mean the data will be extracted, put in queue locally, and that gets the best performance. But if there's any reason to block us from caching those data locally, and we have to run query against the raw data, then this Athena could be an alternative. So like the data go to the S3 bucket, it never go out. So both the raw data and the query result sitting in the bucket until we open some connection. So I think that's pretty much what I have prepared. Any questions from anyone?
So this is awesome. This is awesome and very handy. I think because we know there is no database option, so this can be very handy going forward. But for this use case, I think we would like to first is the what do you call, the queue based
Yeah.
approach, which Somo is on board for the time being. But this is really handy. I was looking for the joins and stuff like that, and as long as the metadata is same for all the files, which is going to be eventually. So I think this is going to work. Definitely work if we need to fall back and use this here. But the only thing is, what's his name? Somu mentioned, if to check with kernel if those APIs are supported or not, we can call those APIs. That is another thing, but at least we have something in a back pocket, and if we have to cross, the hurdles or whatever, we technical things, but at least on the other side, we have some solution in place. That's great.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I have never seen example query, like I don't know, like what kind of report where I'm going to run against those data. So, Pradam, do you have expectation, like what
Yeah,
kind
they
of?
have shared a template. They have. I'll forward it to you. It's an Excel file, and I can send it to you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I would say if our current queue approach can fulfill these needs, then stay with that. So it should be our primary. But just in case we encounter any difficulty, then we can probably go with this. Oh, by the way, so since in terms of the CSV file, we are discussing this topic. So why I know that Treasury sent us a big I would say a bundle of those files, right? And then we extract them and we send them to S3 bucket. And later on, our UiPath will download these files back to local and start extracting. So what is the reason to send those files to S3 bucket? Does anyone know? Like why these files need to travel to S3 bucket and come back? Uh, is there a business reason for that?
So I can talk to that. So as you noticed, because of large volume, large size, large number of files, and those individual files have to be processed for scaling purpose. We keep saying, the performer bot, and depending on the SLA, and this is where if they are saying for the first batch they're expecting 20,000 records, and this is where those they will have to broken down or extracted into individual files, so those bots can go and process individual ones and go one after another. And
Okay.
that's the goal. That's why we have to unzip and store that information for individual files and then process them.
Uh, so I hear the reason that we need to split those files, but what is the reason to pushing those files to S3 bucket? Like why this S3
No, but
bucket
that's a
need to be
shared
involved?
location. We don't know where else these bots, these performer bots, can fetch the data. There has to be a shared location, right? So file share is not the solution here. We don't know, this file share. So S3 is the only place, where it can scale the space, and all those can be managed through subscription, and security wise. And they have some interface also. They have been using S3 for file storage purpose. That's the reason. It's only for storage purpose.
Okay, I see. Um, so you mean that we just use this S3 bucket as a
A
temporary
central location,
staging
a central
area?
location, yeah, where the multiple bots can go and fetch and process. That's the only thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking like, a local share directly can get a better performance and better control from my point of view. But if S3 is the only option to share between both, then
Yeah,
we
I
can go
was
for that.
my first thought was if there was a file server or something, SMB or some kind of which I've used in the past. I thought that will be the quickest one, but I think they don't have that, and the challenge here is, as we keep seeing it, they have these, what do you call, cordoned or the certain areas, and then IRS network and these networks within that. And if the file servers are sitting somewhere outside, and even database is a perfect example. Requesting one is something going to the other department and going through that whole 9 yards. So anyway,
Mm.
so let's this is the reality. Unfortunately, challenges to see if it's the most best solution would have been database, very simplified. But unfortunately, we have to deal with whatever is available to us. That's why we have to take
Yeah,
this route.
Yep.
and
Good.
just one last thing to add to that. So when it comes to the shared location, there is a little bit of hesitance for getting bots access to that shared drive. So that's where there is sort of that effort of looking into the EFTU job that can move from the shared drive into a location that our VMs would have access to. Because
Correct.
I think I get your point of, if the shared drive was central, why can't we just unzip and
Correct.
run the files from that? But unfortunately, the bots might not, or likely won't be able to even tap into that location to
Exactly.
perform those operations.
Yes, yes. The
Okay.
very first thing I asked them, I went with two premise, honestly, Matt, to begin with, a file share, because in my previous life or previous job, that's what was we were using it, and the database. I thought, oh, this is a very common thing. So, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. So never mind. And they don't want to. It's a completely different group, department, maintenance, and they manage, and the whole security and those things come into play. They don't want files to be sent to file share or somewhere. And I think that's where, and they don't have their own file share server, so they are happy within that UiPath world, and AWS is the only cloud subscription they have it, what we have. And then I think and then all these things become little additional technical debt.
Gotcha. Yep, makes sense.
No, this is good. No, this, or what you have, this can be definitely used, going forward, or other places, so this is handy. This is very handy. No, this is good
Yeah,
job.
it's really interesting. Thanks,
It
Mo.
is. Mhm.
Good. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you,
Thank
Mo.
you, guys. Yep.
Okay.
Talk to you later. Have a good
All
one.
right then. Thank you.
All right, you
Bye.
guys take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.